Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report for Stash Project. This is going to be our February 2024 compilation video. For the new folks, there are a handful of you since the last time. Welcome. We do these every month, somewhere during the month, usually more towards the beginning than the end, to let you know what new and reissued kits are coming out in the given month. This again, February of 2024, if you're watching this from the future. There are several releases from the domestic side of things, several releases from overseas. Minus Mobius, I believe we have releases from pretty much everybody domestically this month. Also, by the time you watch this, there's a pretty good chance that about 5 kits are going to be reissued from Revell. We will talk about them more in depth in the March video, but again, depending on when you watch this and when it gets uploaded, as this is toward the end of February when I'm recording this, the reissue of the Revell 64 Impala as a I suppose it'll be a 3-in-1 as a stock, a custom, and a lowrider. Going to have newly tooled wheels for a lowrider option in that kit this time around. Reissue of the old Monogram, well, not so much old, but more old than new, Monogram 124 scale 77 Jeep CJ7, a reissue of the Revell 68 Pontiac Firebird, a reissue of the 57 Chevrolet Bel Air, and that is the newer Tri-5 tooling that they came up with in the 90s and 2000s era. It is not the old Every Door Opens kit, because remember, that tooling now belongs to Atlantis, so it is the newer tool from the late 90s, early 2000s. And then lastly, there'll be a reissue of the Ford Bronco half cab, the first gen Bronco. You may recall the half cab came with a trailer and a dune buggy originally, probably about 4 years ago now, and this is a reissue of that kit with just the Bronco itself without the trailer and the dune buggy. So if you never wanted the trailer and the dune buggy, or you didn't feel like paying the price for a complete 3-pack of kits, as it were, then this is your opportunity to grab that again as the half cab, just the truck. So again, those kits we'll show box art and talk about more in the March video, but again, by the time you watch this, probably a pretty good chance they're going to be either in stock or just coming into stock in your favorite retailer, and that'll be a big dose of, again, Revell kits, some of which we talked about in that 2024 release video. I believe actually all of those we talked about in the 2024 release video, and so good to see those kits are starting to show up on shelves. The other ones that are a little more modified in terms of the reissues and new tools and like that, new tools and things like that, a little bit further down the road still, but at least we're starting to see some movement on the 2024 kits. So, with that being said, starting out at Revell with the kits that are actually released in February itself, you have this, which is a modified reissue of the brand new 71 Mustang tooling, this time coming out in the Diamonds Are Forever 007 boxing as the Mach 1 Mustang. Now, depending on how well stocked your local hobby shop may be, if you're fortunate to actually have a local hobby shop, you may have already seen this come out in a Revell of Germany box. This is coming out in our smaller US style box. This kit, in addition to having the Mach 1 parts that make it look like the movie car, and you can only build it at least graphically as the movie car, it doesn't have any other decals in it other than what it would take to make the car from the movie. Hey, it's a movie licensing. Would we like to see other decals? Sure, I agree with that, but you understand where the kit is in terms of what it is. It's a movie replica, so it replicates the movie car. New tooling in this kit, in addition to the outside pieces, is a 429, not Ram Air. This is just a regular 429 in there. So the new engine as well. And then the other thing we're going to get, and I didn't necessarily believe we're going to get a US boxing of it, but we do. This has the Revell Germany box art, but it is in our smaller boxing, and that is the Goldfinger 007 tied in Aston Martin DB5. I would be a much bigger fan of this car if it could be built stock and the spy stuff was sort of a secondary thing, but again, it is tied into the James Bond movie, so it kind of makes sense that it is the way it is. I would really like it if it didn't have that giant hole in the roof already cut in. I would have rather had that flashed over and something I cut out if I decided to put the ejector seat and things like that in there. The bulletproof screen in the back deck kind of makes a weird set of lines in the kit that would need to be, again, taken care of and rescribed in order to make a stock rear trunk. USCP, Ukrainian Scale Car Productions, has done a stock grill and a few other and wire wheels and a few other pieces for this. They're A, better detailed than the kit itself as they're 3D printed, and B, make the car a little closer to stock. I would really like to see this come back out without with a body that doesn't have a hole in the roof. That would, I know I could fix it. I know I could, but I also know that I have way too many models as it is, and my level of give a hex is not high enough for me to fix that. I know I would never, I'd buy it to fix it, and I would never do it, and it would just sit there, and I'm, relatively speaking, trying not to buy things that I know for a fact that I'm never going to get around to. I may buy some stuff that I think I'll get around to someday if I live forever, but this one I can say that I'm never going to get around to that, so no sense in plowing into that purchase. Over at Round 2, several new tool releases this month, finally. And even at this point in the month, you may not have been able to find these kits as of yet, but they are out there somewhere. Trust me, I actually have purchased these already. First up in the new toolbox, and this shares a great deal of tooling with the other new toolkit, and that is the 63 Ford pickup truck with the camper shell. A lot of opinions about this camper shell being hideous and ugly and not a real thing. It appears to possibly, looking at the actual history of this kit being a 1963 annual, that this was something that perhaps the AMT design team had come up with that doesn't necessarily replicate a real one-to-one camper shell. You don't have to put the camper shell on, for good Lord's sakes. Everybody seems to think that it's glued to the bed already or something, the way that some folks are acting about how indignant they are that this was what came with this kit. It does include a lot of the options that the 1960 Ford does, as far as like the shop truck, service truck type options. Neither one of these kits has a stock engine in it. They're both custom engines. Would have been nice to see a stock engine, but with the way these kits are done at Round 2, with them being, a reimagining of the original with a few things fixed or some things modernized, as it were, to make the model more complete, more what you would expect, so to speak, in current kit terms. We'll talk about that in half a second and make a little more sense out of that. But it's also very much like the Coronet, like the Nova and things like that, where it is, that vintage feel with a little bit of a modern flair to it. Modern flair in this are like the fact that the rear taillights are separate lenses. The headlights are separate lenses. Those were all molded in the original kit. This kit, because it was a constant, annual and a constant retool, if you can find an original one of these 63s, the body molding that goes down the side of the pickup is doing the wave, man. And this is going to be nice and straight because it's brand new. So, is it everything you'd want it to be? No, because it's not like state-of-the-art 2024 tooling. But you also are not paying $300 for it. So, count your blessings where they land, I guess. The other one we just mentioned, the 1960 Ford F100 pickup truck. This includes a trailer. So does the 63. 63 also has the trailer in it, as well as the stock custom service parts. A lot of these parts sort of coincide with one another. When you get these two and you sort of sit them down together, you'll notice like the chassis, for example, the 1960 parts are molded onto the right side of the chassis itself, and the 63 are molded on the left side of the chassis, meaning that those things are a gate flip as they produce them as to which accessory parts you get, because the chassis plate itself is the same for both kits, and you'll see that with a lot of the other parts too. A lot of the stuff will carry engine, drivetrain, chassis, suspension, stuff like that carries over between the two. The service truck parts, the trailer, all that sort of stuff carry between the two, and like the cab, the interior, and all of the accoutrement so to speak. That make it as 1960 and 1963 are obviously individual for each kit. And this 1960, again, separate headlights, separate taillights. This is a one-piece body as opposed to the original, which was a two-piece body. So there's, that going forward as well. So to me, they're very exciting kits because there's no way in the world I would have ever purchased these otherwise, because I'm not paying $500 for two model kits, So I almost bought a 63 built up at a show for $90. It was pretty decent condition. All said, it wasn't painted, so at least you wouldn't have to strip it. You just have to get it apart. But I'll take the $62 that I paid for the two of these rather than $90 for one, and then try to find a built up 60 or whatever. The 1960 was only a 1 year piece because the kit was significantly retooled to do the 61 through 63 kits. So that's why they couldn't ever reissue it, because it didn't exist. And then after the kits were 63 ish was done, that tooling was later scrapped. So these are great to have back as what they are. Also reissued from round 2 this month, you have another boxing of the 1961 Ford Galaxy hardtop, the advanced customizing kit. I do like this box art a lot better than the last go around in the mid 2000s, where it had all the customized pieces on the front of it. I think this presents as a slightly better box art, with the car taking a photo of a salt flat dragster basically in the background there. This kit came out in 1961. It's by no means terrible, but understand that, it is, 63 years old at this point. So understand what you're purchasing with this kit. But it is one of those old AMT kits that still has all of the original parts in it. So that's pretty nice if you're interested in such a thing. Then a reissue of the 1970 Chevelle SS with a John Wick movie tie-in. Pretty much the same kit that this has been for the last 30 years, but the front end pieces have been modified slightly to make them fit better. So a little bit of retooling was done to the front end, the grille, and the headlight assemblies to get them to fit into the front fascia a little bit better. That's certainly an improvement in the kit. This is something, the 70 Chevelle, something I would really like to see one of the other companies or AMT themselves do as a modern day new tool, like the 68, 69 Chevelles from Revell, something of that ilk, rather than sort of treading water with this old one. But it is what it is. Speaking of older kits that haven't seen the light of day in quite some time, now this is an original tooling. This is still going to be the parts as they exist. They just haven't been run for 40 years. And that is the reissue of the MPC Boxing Dodge Warlock Stepside Pickup Truck 4x4. You may have seen this as a kit review over at Scale Model Experiment a few months ago. At this point, he got an early pre-production kit and just did an in-box review of it. This does have a lot of the parts in it for the regular swept side bed, including the suspension components and things like that would fit that bed. So there's a couple of rear axles, a couple of front axles, and things of that nature. So you could, with this kit and the swept side, the long bed, regular bed Dodge pickup truck, make a four-wheel drive, regular pickup truck as well, combining the two bodies and the two suspension components and things like that. Because the swept side, the kit that came out 2 years ago, only has the two-wheel drive parts in it, and this has all of the four-wheel drive parts, including those that would go underneath that long bed truck that sort of come out of the original annuals that ran in the early 70s into the late 70s. This is a 78 as it stands. The last time this kit was released was in 1978. The last time the four-wheel drive parts themselves were seen was in 1981. So it's been a long time since you've had the option to build these kits, at least out of a box that was somewhat fresh. It is 40-some-odd-year-old tooling, so keep that in mind. If you've built one of those swept side beds, you probably know what you're looking at parts-wise, including any kind of excess flash and molding lines, stuff like that. This does have gold-plated rims in it and a whole bunch of decals to really do the Dodge Warlock graphics package up the right way, which was something the original kit didn't do either. So a nice improvement to it. I really would have liked to have seen them retool the grille to this and put headlight lenses into it, but again, there was no retooling in this. This was just running the kit for the first time in a long time. Other NPC kit, we have a reissue of the 1960 Chevrolet Corvette 7-in-1 customizing kit. Those 7-in-1 start splitting hairs because it's like dragster, salt flat dragster, custom dragster, stock, custom, modified, mild custom. You know, yeah, are there 7 different ways you can build this? Yes. Are you thinking, man, there's just a 60 Corvette out? Also, yes, there is still the AMT 60 Corvette that floats around. That was reissued last year. So this is the NPC version. They are 2 different kits, obviously. Back in 1960, those were 2 completely, totally separate companies. So each one is a slightly different take on the kit. AMT's was stock. This one is all the things that you could possibly want to build it as, I guess. You know, it's got a whole bunch of wheels, a whole bunch of tires. And yeah, if you're into 60 Corvettes, it's certainly an option for you because it's, again, something that hasn't been seen in a few years. So, you know, it seems like it was just out, but not the same kit. Over at Salvino's, JR, the kit of the month, as it were, the vintage kit, the one that all the club member got, was the Junior Johnson Racing 1984 Monte Carlo, and also affectionately known as the Chicken and Beer car because it is Budweiser sponsored. And then the rear deck had a large KFC sponsorship, as does the C-pillars have KFC on it as well. So Chicken and Beer car gives you the option to build either Neil Bonnet or Darrell Waltrip's car, so you get both sets of numbers in it. Only build one car, only one kid in the car. You got to pick one or the other. The side numbers are gold foil decals for the first time ever. This kit was originally done by Monogram back in the 1984 era. However, the decals were just like brown. And there were also brown roof decals, and the decals on these cars' roofs were white. So again, that's a first, having that be the correct color. All of the color actually on this kit is on the decal sheet. All of the blue is on the decal sheet. The red is on the decal sheet as well. So if you want to paint the roof, you can. If you don't want to, there are decals for it. The decals are all separate, so you can't paint the red and then put the decals that go on the roof and the C-pillars and things like that on there separately. They're not attached to one another. It's not a thing of trying to match shades of red or anything else like that. So your options are not endless, but they're certainly twofold in that way. And then in the next gen kits, you're going to get the rest of the Hendricks Motorsports 2024 lineup. So you have Kyle Larson's car. Looks pretty much like Kyle Larson's car last year. I don't believe there's any difference in it. Actually, I think this is the 2023 scheme with the 2022 hood. You'd have to have all 3 of them side by side to notice a difference, but be that as it may. Kyle Larson's car for 2024. And then you have Alex Bowman's car for 2024, still in Ally Financial. This is a great big, dark blue purple camo pattern. And the whole camo pattern is on the decal sheet. This is 2 decal sheets to get this done. So you're going to wrap the whole car with decals. So know that going in. This is not a paint it a color and then try to paint it some more colors and mask some things off. Yeah, you're not going to get away with that. It's a digital camo wrap, so you're going to have to put all the decals on. They are cartograph decals, so they should work out nice and well, except for, of course, that hood decal with all the slat vents. You're going to have to do a lot of trimming and pushing and prodding to get that all to lay down correctly, but if you're into it, it's existing. And then you have William Byron's 2024 car. This is the primary sponsor for him this year, the Raptor sponsorship. Kind of like this Raptor better than last year's in terms of just the color scheme. Again, obviously everything on this, it's molded in black. Everything else is a decal because, you're not going to do that fade. You could try to do that fade and paint, I guess, but good luck with that. It's certainly a multitude of colors flowing through from the front to the back of the car, ending in white. So, I mean, it's a lot of fine motor control on your airbrush there if you think you're going to paint that and then try to put the decal instead of using the decals. You're going to use the decals. But yeah, so that takes care of the first of the Chevy kits we're going to see this year. They, of course, have licensing to Trackhouse, licensing to RCR, and I was going to say licensing to Legacy, but Legacy switched to Toyota, so they're not a Chevy team anymore. Fords and Camrys will be done later. They have to, of course, make new bodies for both the Toyota and the Fords, so we're going to get a lot of Chevys up front. It is what it is. Also, by the time you've seen this, you'll know that William Byron won the Daytona 500, and so they will be producing, as planned, a Daytona 500 winner. So The Exalta, the white, pearl white with the fluorescent numerals and fluorescent red flames, will be a kit that will probably come out in April, because they were already ready to go with that, but they need to obviously have the decals printed. So yeah, that'll be something that'll be coming along nice and early compared to last year's Ricky Stenhouse car, which allegedly they're still working on, but who knows when that'll actually ever get done, because Stenhouse doesn't seem to have a licensing department over there at JTG. Also, SJR adjacent, the folks over West's Model Car Corner putting out another one of their modified. This one, the Todd Owen car for the 2023 champion of Stafford Speedway. I guess this is the home of the modified that this car represents. And so, yeah, if you're into the modifieds, another one of these to build for that as well. And it's a championship car, so always a good bonus when it's a significant car in terms of the pedigree, legacy, if you will, of the vehicle. Going over to Japan, 2 kits out of Aoshima this month that are semi-new. They're being added to the respective lines that they're in. First up, you have the 1992 Nissan Leopard J Fieri, or J Fieri, J Fari, whatever this works out to be. It's sort of one of those, yeah, okay, whatever. But this time around, and it did technically, I believe, last time as well, but it was not advertised at all. This time around, it does include the Infinity licensing in terms of decals and the badging and decals for the wheels and all the other things you need to make this an Infinity J30. The kit itself is already has the left-hand drive parts molded into the kit. They've always been in there, much like the Hilux Surf and the Nissan Terrano, where those have always had left-hand drive parts, but they for some reason have never relicensed them as a SR5 and a Pathfinder. I don't know why, but it's a licensing thing, obviously. But this one actually does have all the Infinity stuff, and it has window masks, which is something that this kit has not had in the previous couple iterations. This was available as a Infinity J30 specifically in the New Trends USA boxing in 1993. This is the only time that it was actually branded and sold as an Infinity. So if you want to build a unique Infinity, because there weren't too many of these things around, and you can paint it Millennium Jade Metallic, it is one of the cars that was painted that color, yeah, you can pick one of these up and be unique amongst your friends. The other one is also a Nissan. This is a Nissan Silvia S13. This was originally shown as being like a gray primered prototype, and when that happens at Aoshima, that usually means there's a bunch of parts being added to the kit, but nothing in the literature said anything about there being new parts. And so when this kit finally came out and the instruction manual was finally shown, it doesn't actually have any new parts. The newest parts in this kit are the wheels, and those were told in 2007. This is an amalgamation of parts kits. So these bumpers and side skirts and rear skirts and wheels and brakes and things like that have all been available in different kits and different variations of S13 Silvias. They're all being put into this box for the first time and sold in this particular aero package for the first time. The brakes are off an S15 Silvia for some reason. So, I mean, there's that. But if you're into Silvias, this is another option for you to build, and you'll get a bunch of spare parts with it as well, because I believe you'll get at least one set of spare brakes in there. You get a couple of spare bumpers and a couple of odds and ends like that. So, yeah, it is what it is in that sense. Over at Fujimi, there are going to be 3 releases this month. First up, you have a release of the 1992 HKS car, the HKS R32 GTR. This is a Japanese touring car, championship car. They did this decal scheme back in the day, back in the 90s and 2000s. It got reached into the 2000s. The problem with this is that the wheels in this kit are not the wheels that are on this car. The mirrors that are on this car are not the mirrors that are in this kit. You could buy the set of decals from Shunko. You'd have to paint the whole two-tone because they only include like the actual words and numbers and stuff like that. This decal package includes all the green striping, so that would make easier decaling. assuming that Fujimi's decals are worth anything in 2024. They in the past have not been worth anything. I've not bought a new enough kit to be able to judge whether the decals would be any better than they ever were before. But yeah, it's. I mean, I buy it for the decals and then put it on a Hasegawa kit or a Tamiya kit would be my suggestion. Then you have a reissue of their Toyota Cresta Tourer S. This is coming with these 18-inch wheel option on here, sort of being the big thing. And they're also reissuing a Mark II Tourer S with the same set of wheels. Actually, it's a different set of wheels, but also an 18-inch set of wheels. Now that I look at them, they are different. I saw the outside bolt pattern and went, oh, that's the same set of 5 spokes. But no, different set of 5 spokes. At any rate, both of these are molded in a dark metallic green as far as the bodies go. The stock wheels are included, stock brakes are included. You get these big wheels and big brakes thrown in as sort of the pot sweetener on these, I guess. They are ironically both have the same license plate on them, which would technically be illegal because they both couldn't be plated at the same time, since the both cars would have existed at the same time. These were mid-1990s cars. They're basic curbside kits. They have metal axles and things of that nature. Nothing to really write home about here. They're, they are the perennial like Fujimi $12 kit. I think they're running like 25 this go around, but they're not great. They're not bad. Frankly, the Aoshima kits are better in terms of overall detail and just, being a better kit, but those kits aren't available right now. So, that is an option. Those two kits are an option. I'm not thrilled with them. I have one, I've seen the other. They're not, they're curbside basic kits. Lots of options to totally customize them out if you wanted to swap wheels and throw 3D printed parts on it and stuff like that. But as they come in the kit, they're real. They are the dictionary definition of catalog specification, meaning that they are like 18-inch wheel option aside, they are like straight out of the brochures from the dealership. Over to Hasegawa we go, as we have a few things to talk about. There are a few kits. All of these are reissued, but a couple of them have some interesting parts choices this go around. So first up, you have a reissue of their 124 scale Reynard 89D Formula 3000 car. This is the Club Angle version. Now this kit was done, as far as the decals go, back when these kits originally came out in the mid-1990s. So this is not necessarily a new car. It is an interesting choice in terms of the car, though, because the Club Angle ran the entire 1989 Formula 3000 series season. They switched to a different manufacturer. They switched to Lola about 4 races into the season. So this car only existed for 4 races. In those 4 races, it didn't qualify, it didn't finish, and it finished like 27th and 23rd. This was a really abjectly awful vehicle. In terms of performance, the 124 scale kits are kind of interesting because they're full detail and stuff like that, but man, they're wee little because they're 124 scale and not 120th scale. But that was the shtick with Hasegawa's Formula 3000 cars. They were a smaller scale because they were a lesser series. So yeah, it's an option for you if you've been collecting the 124 scale Formula 3000 cars, because it's been a little while since any new versions of those come out. And then you have a reissue of their Porsche 962C in what they were calling the 1988 Wecken Japan Fuji 1000 kilometers. I don't know why this couldn't just be the 1988 Japan or 1988 Fuji 1000 kilometers. I mean, if you care enough about Porsche 962Cs at this point, with them having released like, I don't know, a dozen of them at this point with different decal packages on them, you'd know what the Fuji 1000 kilometers is, or if you could Google it at least. But yeah, it was a 1988 round of the World Endurance Championship, obviously, and Fuji is in Japan, in case you aren't sure. This is a interesting sponsorship package because, yes, you are looking at that correctly. That is sponsored by Penthouse. Bow, chicka, wow, wow. Little porn on your race car. Also, the side sponsor there is Rizla, which is a European tobacco rolling paper company. So apparently, while you cannot put actual tobacco itself into a model kit, you can put tobacco accessories and porn. Those two things, perfectly okay for the children. Yeah, 962C, curbside, blah, blah, blah. It's like 50 parts. These are real simple, basic kits. But it's certainly a different option in terms of having some unique sponsorship that you would not normally see in a model car. This car in real life finished like 17th in this race. So again, it's a kind of an odd, weird thing to choose from, but I mean, I'm not going to sit here and necessarily argue about porn on my model kit. Reissue of the Mitsubishi Galant GTO 2000 GSR early version with rear wing. So, while this is technically still resin all the things, it is not resin the way you'd normally associate it with Hasegawa. This rear wing, which is the only new part to this kit, is 3D printed. This is, as far as I know, the first official major foray of a major kit manufacturer. I know there's a whole boatload of 3D printed parts out there, but as far as actual, like, a name you'd recognize, Hasegawa, a name you could count on, offering 3D parts as part of a commercial model kit. I believe this might be the first examples of them this month. And as I look into the future, in terms of kit releases that we already know about, but we're not talking about because they're months in advance, this will continue on at least through the spring, as they look at a different way to augment their kits. This is kind of really brilliant on their part, because obviously anybody who knows anything about like resin casting, the actual, pressure cast resin, you only get so many uses out of that mold before you got to make a new one because it just deteriorates. 3D printing, that never deteriorates. So this kit with its rear wing can always be remade because, well, everything's plastic except that rear wing, and we just 3D print out some wings and off we go. So very cool to see that taking place at a major model company. Reissue of the Lancia 037 Rally, the 1986 Monte Carlo Rally. This is the Jolly Club. It was an independent team back then. Lancia 037 was pretty much done in 1986. It had already been replaced by the Super Delta or the Delta S4, depending on your terminology. 1986, of course, the last year of Group B, because the Delta S4 and other cars were entirely just too fast and too powerful to control, and too many people were dying as a result. But in the 1986 Monte Carlo Rally, this car finished third. So a reasonably good performance. It was a tarmac rally, so you still weren't necessarily getting a huge advantage out of an all-wheel drive car in the ways, because the all-wheel drive cars were really set up to run off-road rallies, that being the huge advantage to them in that time period. I know all-wheel drive in like 2024, it's like, it's for snow, what are you talking about? We drive that on the street all the time. In racing terms back in the 80s, it was more of an off-road performance enhancer than it was an on-road performance enhancer. So, that being said, kind of a cool thing. Jolly Club usually had like a green and gold or green and yellow kind of decals, and this is sort of a more traditional Martini-esque purple and blue, or dark blue and light blue kind of paint job, so kind of cool. And then lastly from Hasegawa, you have this, a reissue of the Toyota Supra A70 3.0 GT Turbo A custom version. Now, what this has in it is the Turbo A sort of parts, if you will. A lot of that's just going to be exterior pieces, because the Turbo A was mostly an internals type of vehicle. It was done as sort of a tribute to the race car, to the homologated race car. This has like center lock wheels, which wouldn't have been on the street car. So it has the suspension and the wheels for the race car, so it's way slammed down low compared to the street car version of this kit. And more 3D printed parts included here. That big rear wing, rear spoiler, and that big exhaust, that fart can, as some people would call it, both of those parts are 3D printed. So you're again seeing more 3D printed parts in a commercial model kit. Hasegawa blazing a new trail in modeling. You'd really think that'd be like a Tamiya thing, wouldn't you? But no, it's going to be Hasegawa leading the way on that. So that's pretty cool. I appreciate it. Couple of last things to talk about here real quick on the way out. These are sort of, also mentions. This is a Platts release specifically, so you have to buy this through Japan. It won't be sold like worldwide. It'll only be a Japan thing. Reissued the Audi A4 BTCC Championship car. Obviously, this came out a couple months ago, but this, with all that Japanese printing on the front, also includes the detail upset in the kit. Now, you might be like, oh my gosh, that's a great deal. It's about the same price as the kit with the PE set if you bought them separately. I think it's about $5 discount. But the PE and the decals and the seatbelt material and all that stuff is in the kit already. So Makes it a great deal easier to buy this and get everything you need all in one place, rather than trying to buy the kit in one place and then search around trying to find the photo etch set. Because some places, obviously, they don't order as many PE sets as they order model kits, and so the PE sets will sell out and they'll still have kits, because not everybody wants to build, all of the PE into this car. So this is an option. Again, only in Japan, so you have to go through your Hobby Link, your Hobby Search, Plaza Japan, and other sorts of retailers like that in order to get one of these. They'll be in real limited numbers this way. It's a Japan-only type of deal. But you can, of course, pry them out of the country if you order them from the right places. And then lastly, in this video, is going to be a release by Academy. This has absolutely no English on it. It's all in South Korean. But this is a Hyundai Porter 2, which is a little delivery van. This represents anything from a 2013 to current version of this. There's a couple of sets of wheels in here, a couple of sets of headlights, a couple of sets of mirrors, a couple of sets of front grills, because you can build the older Porter 2 and the current Porter 2, the 2013 to 2000, and I think it's 20, and then the current one. This is a very sort of complete curbside. The engine is a bottom, just the bottom of the engine, but it's separate in terms of the parts. Everything about the chassis is separate. The suspension, it's a ladder frame, so you build it like a ladder frame, side to side, like an old 70s AMT truck with all the cross members and the two ladder frames on the side and all that sort of thing. There's a couple of different choices of exhaust depending if you build the old one, the new one, because there's different emissions, which is a real nice throw in. Like who cares? And as an American, I wouldn't know the two exhausts from a hole in the wall, but having them both in there is a pretty cool option in terms of including everything you would need to build either one. So that's a pretty cool little piece. Shop truck, maybe. You can get those through your Japanese retailers. They'll probably show up maybe in some select U.S. stores that carry a lot of Academy stuff, and of course you can order them on eBay from South Korea directly, should you so choose. So that, guys, wraps this one up. Hope you enjoyed it. See you guys on the other side.